Thank you. Like Aaron Jordan here, who is helping me out, I'm an archaeologist here in the state of Utah for the Great Basin, and I prefer to talk to dead people. The problem is when they start talking back to me, I know I've been in the sun too long. Early on during my education, I inquired as to the requirements of becoming an archaeologist. I was told that to overcome those feelings of wanting to become an archaeologist, I should lie down until the feeling goes away. My response today to someone seeking a job in the field will be to follow your dreams because the payoff is well worth it. I must admit that being an archaeologist has its benefits as well as its drawbacks. Although we may never get paid what we think we're worth, there's never a dull moment or lack of conversation at the dinner table when an archaeologist is present. Staying true to my dreams, Bighorn Archaeological Consultants was organized in March of 2004 to provide archaeological resource services to government agencies, engineering groups, and the public. Bighorn was organized as a cooperative venture between two experienced archaeologists, Dale Gorley, my business partner, and myself, who had extensive background work. In June of 2004, Bighorn met the group known as the Ancient Historical Research Foundation and became advisors to their archaeological matters. Since this partnership began, Bighorn has kept all AHRF archaeological explorations regarding federal, state, and local law requirements in the forefront. Before AHRF asked Bighorn to join together, the organization consisted of several scientists and amateurs studying and researching a number of projects. Our archaeologists added a piece to the puzzle and tied amateur and professional archaeological goals together. This brings me to the subject of my paper, or Bridging the Gap Between Amateur and Professional Archaeology, having walked both sides of the fence. The world of archaeology today holds a fascination for many people. Archaeology appeals to some because it seeks answers to questions about ourselves. To others, the life of the archaeologist conjures up pictures of adventurous travel to exotic places and dramatic discoveries of lost civilizations. This romantic image of the archaeologist is best perhaps represented by the unknowns. Fiction aside, certainly the general public's image of archaeology is shaped by real reports of spectacular finds in newspapers or on television, such as the discovery of another tomb in Egypt. It is these types of stories from the media that continue to excite the imagination. However, spectacular finds like the tombs are obviously very rare in archaeology, and few archaeologists are lucky enough to find anything that even approaches a dramatic unearthing. Archaeologists are not motivated by the prospect of adventure or danger, and they certainly do not recover evidence from the past for its monetary or aesthetic value. Instead, they are motivated by a desire for the information that will help further our understanding of the past. But let us not forget that archaeologists are not the only ones providing information about the past. This scientific field originated with the work of amateur collectors. These individuals, often part-time hobbyists, pursued their interest because they valued the objects they collected, often as things of beauty or curiosity. In time, amateur collectors gave way to individuals committed to discovering the meaning behind the assembled artifacts. It is here that the amateur and professional archaeologists cross paths as the attention shifts more to questions of function and explanation of artifacts. Also, it is unfortunate that looters and/or vandalism have encountered remains of the past as a result of treasure seeking. It is often that we come across old historic buildings or ancient pit houses only to find them knocked over or with large holes dug in and around the structures by looters. Although all information is not lost, putting the pieces back together is time-consuming. Another goal of this paper is to educate those types of people and tell them that the artifacts they are collecting were, in fact, direct clues to the understanding of entire societies or cultures that have long disappeared. It is important to remember that the purpose of archaeology is to study the full range of our human past. It does so from the recovery and analysis of surviving material remains to reconstruct ancient behavior and determine how and why cultures change through time. Although archaeology belongs to the general realm of science, like any scientific discipline, it involves a search for knowledge based on hard evidence using logical and consistent methods. This is accomplished by studying archaeological sites and their artifacts in two ways: in their original provenience and their associations. Provenience and associations give a summary or context of a site. Let me go over these by definition. By definition, provenience refers to a three-dimensional location of an artifact or feature within a site. Provenience information allows the archaeologist to record and later to reconstruct association and context. Association refers to two or more artifacts or any kind of data occurring together in the same site. The associations of various kinds of data are often crucial to the interpretation of past events. For instance, the artifacts found in association with a human burial, such as hunting weapons, may be clues to the individual's sex and livelihood. Context is a summary evaluation of the significance of provenience, association, and a site given for a given artifact. In other words, context is an assessment of where the evidence is, how it got there, and what happened to it in the meantime. The importance and significance of accurately determining context through provenience and association can be illustrated by several examples to explain what happens if proper context cannot be established. Historic sites are particularly informative due to past records that have been kept on most artifacts. Research allows dates and places of manufacture to give light on an artifact. In the case of a project Bighorn conducted in Idaho, a historic can scatter was recorded late last winter. However, all the cans were crushed except for one. The can with the caption, "Are you a dainty nut?" was recorded, which allowed us to accurately date the site through research. A few of you may have even eaten from this type of can in your lifetime. To you, it's a simple can. To me, it's a great clue to the past. Had it been taken from the site as a quote-unquote cool can, we would not have been able to determine context of the site. Another example of the importance of provenience is with an excavation that took place in Colville, Utah. We were called out on the 17th of December to begin excavating a coffin discovered by Big D Construction Company. Big D Construction Company had encountered remains while excavating footing trenches for an expansion to the North Summit Middle School. By 11 a.m. the same morning, Big D had located evidence of another coffin. Although Bighorn only excavated 2 of the 6 burials found, the opportunity to research part of Utah's history was fascinating. During the excavation, proper care was taken for these graves as we excavated with trowels, brushes, dental picks, and finally sifting screens. After the bones were photographed in place, they were removed and given to the state medical examiner's office for analysis. After analysis, the medical examiner gave me her report containing all the facts and information regarding the bones of the 2 bodies we recovered from the excavation. I will try my best to put in simple English her conclusions. I say simple English because I had to call on a forensic anthropologist to get my own translation. The baby was an infant. The development of the teeth suggests it was a typical infant between birth and 6 months of age. None of the baby's bones had completely grown. At a normal infant's birth, the femur or leg bone is approximately 5 centimeters long. The femur of our recovered infant was 7.25 centimeters long, or the length of my pinky finger. Also, the baby had a small amount of fine, slightly curled blonde or light brown hair. This was the best indication the baby was Caucasian. The bones from the other burial told a different story. Most of the bones from the female Caucasian body were found and were in good condition. The individual was probably an adult in her mid-20s and about 5 foot 3 inches tall. Although the bones did say she had arthritis, she did not have any signs of chronic diseases. A large amount of hair was present, and it was arranged in long coils which were united at the back of the head and tied with a small amount of twine into a bun. The hair was long, silky, moderately fine and straight. It was blonde or light brown in color. The detailed report also noted her teeth were enameled and well formed and in very poor condition. She had 2 cavities on her lower jaw, and she had 5 teeth missing before she died. She had an overbite and had a significant tartar buildup. Not only did she have an overbite, but she had an opening or gap between her front teeth, similar to David Letterman or Madonna. The medical examiner notes here that this is frequently a family trait. Now that I've given you the facts, I would like to share more information from what I found during the excavation and the importance of provenience. As I began the excavation, I found the baby coffin was small, rectangular in shape, and probably made of pine or cedar. Numerous rusted, square-cut nails were found on either end of the coffin. Research suggests that the early machine-cut nails with handmade square heads, like those recovered, were manufactured between 1790 and the 1920s. More information can be gleaned from the female. She, too, was buried in a coffin made of pine or cedar. Only one rusted nail was recovered from her coffin and was similar to those from the baby's coffin. Although only one nail was recovered from her burial, numerous metal fragments were also present, representing some sort of coffin hardware. Her teeth tell a painful story. With not many dentists in the area, losing 5 teeth and having cavities would have been painful. Today, a cavity can be simply cleaned and filled. Cavities then, after many days or months of pain, would have either rot out or been removed, hopefully by a professional. This could have led to other problems, such as getting an infection from the tools used to extract the tooth. With no antibiotics to kill the infection, a simple tooth problem could have led to an unfortunate death. The most important artifact, I think, was found as we excavated the female. Let me explain. When she passed, she was probably dressed with the nicest clothes she owned. Although the fabric was eroded away, 2 buttons were found with her, one located on her chest and one by her left hand. One of the buttons lets the story be told of the importance of provenience and context. Had these buttons been taken, her story could not have been brought to light. The first button recovered from the sternum of the female adult burial included a white china calico button made from glass or porcelain and a 4-hole see-through. The button measured 10 millimeters across with a repeating purple star pattern. Thus, because provenience of the button was recorded, context of this burial could be more fully explained. Research suggests that this type of button began as a class of clothing buttons. Until the 1840s, this button was molded by hand. However, in 1840, an Englishman, Richard Prosser, invented a way to mass-produce china buttons. This particular pattern was probably created by first applying paint to copper plates and then printing the design onto tissue paper. While the paint was still wet, the paper was placed on the china buttons. The buttons were then fired, adhering the design to the buttons. This type of button was reproduced in Long Island between 1832 and 1856. Why is this artifact significant, one might ask? It is a glimpse into the past of fashion, and perhaps a desired article of clothing to be worn and admired by her peers. I would even venture to say that she cherished this button and either carried it across the plains or made a simple trip to Salt Lake City just to buy a button. Because this burial was not looted and or vandalized, proper excavation techniques allowed provenience of this button to tell a story and perhaps tell a small portion of her life in context to the site. Another example of importance of provenience can be found in an archaeological survey completed along the Arizona Strip near St. George, Utah. During our inventory, Bighorn came across a Pueblo II Virgin Anasazi room block site that had been severely damaged and looted. This photo here, as we look, it's a site sketch map that we have to draw as archaeologists, and I've taken off all the important information such as the archaeology site number. But the areas in gray are actual where the room blocks were, and the areas in yellow is where a lot of the looting took place in the site, as well as you can see, there are some roads that drove right over these room blocks. Although we were able to determine through ceramic analysis, AD 900 to AD 1150, what the site dated to, a more positive date could not be identified due to the amount of charcoal fires that had been left around the site and contaminated other ancient fires that may have existed. Thus, no C14 date could be taken due to some individuals who thought it would be better to dig holes in the site, knock over the rock walls, and have several parties in the same locations over the years. If you look in the middle of this photo right here, we have, this is part of one of the room blocks here, and in the middle is a hole dug by a looter. I'm sure that Dr. Stephen Jones understands this frustration when artifacts or even plant remains associated with artifacts have been tampered with that lead to inaccurate time periods for artifacts. It is my hope that each of us have come to a greater understanding of provenience and the importance of leaving an artifact behind to fully explain context of a site. This by no means does not mean that one cannot go out and discover and be the next Indiana Jones, but rather record and photograph all that you have found and turn it over to an archaeologist who can then apply his or her knowledge and proper channels to bring to light new and interesting finds. Not only will the archaeological community be grateful, but you will receive all the credit for the find. Thank you.